I'm Aaron Porras, and thank you for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, Israel's Interior Ministry publishes its now infamous BDS blacklist. The Minimarkets Bill makes its way through the Knesset, and we reveal why Jerusalemites are braving the winter winds for a pantsless train ride. Stay tuned for the latest news in Israel. Israel has just published a list of groups linked with the BDS movement to boycott the Jewish state, and members and affiliates from these organizations will now officially be banned from entering the country. The government says that this is merely a shift from defense to offense, though critics of the blacklist say that it's a disturbing step away from freedom and democracy. The majority of the 20 organizations on the list are European and American in origin, though some groups from Latin America and South Africa have also been named. Israel's Interior Ministry has already been using the blacklist internally for some time now, using it to deny entry to several foreign travelers in recent months. But now that it's been fully revealed to the public, the government hopes that it will serve as a wake-up call to groups critical of the State of Israel. In fact, within mere hours of its publication, Israel blocked a Norwegian aid worker from returning to the country, accusing the individual of filing for visas for other activists under false pretenses. As it turns out, this aid worker has actually been living in Israel for several years now, but was blocked from re-entering the country after leaving for a brief trip. This incident also happens to coincide with Israel's first visit with Norway's new foreign ministry. Needless to say, this new policy is already making waves and sparking fiery debate. Israel's controversial Minimarkets Bill, which would effectively shutter most commercial business conducted during the Shabbat weekend, is up for its final 2 votes today. Though it passed its first reading last month, the bill has ignited fierce debate on its path to becoming a law, and was only delayed last week when it looked like there weren't going to be enough votes to get the final approval. Religious representatives in the government say that forcing businesses to close during Shabbat is necessary to preserving the country's identity as a Jewish state. But critics point to the law's possibly dire economic consequences, as well as its potential to infringe on others' religious rights, as grounds for its dismissal. Debate has been so intense that just yesterday, Netanyahu's Likud party moved to expel a member of its own party after she refused to vote for a bill in line with the rest of the coalition. That same party also pressured Knesset member Yehuda Glick to attend a vote hearing on the bill last week, mere hours after attending his own wife's funeral. Clearly, the coalition is prepared to pass this bill by any means necessary. It's my pleasure now to introduce my first 2 guests today who are here now in the studio to help dive further into this issue. Rabbi Dov Halbertal, who is the former head of the Office of the Chief Rabbi of Israel and a former lecturer in Jewish law, and Rabbi Meir Azari, the senior rabbi at Bet Daniel in Tel Aviv. Thank you both of you for coming in so much.
Thank you for having us.
All right, so my first question, which actually I'd like to direct at you, Rabbi Halbertal, is, as we've heard, proponents of the bill say that it's necessary to close markets on the Shabbat in order to preserve Israel's Jewish character. Do you believe that that's true?
Absolutely, absolutely. There is nothing that symbolizes more the Jewish appeal than Shabbat. Shabbat is the most symbol, the best symbol of the Jewish nation, all over the generations. And keeping the Shabbat publicly means that we want to stay and to be a Jewish state.
But that being said, I mean, there are already a lot of Jewish practices kind of ingrained into the lifestyle here of Israel. Why force observance? Rabbi Azari, I'd like to turn to you actually for that.
I agree that Shabbat is a great symbol in the Jewish tradition and probably in the Jewish state as well. But you don't force Judaism. You bring Judaism to people by love, trying to touch their heart and their mind with love and not by religious coercion. We saw what happened years ago when the law of Hametz was presented to the Israeli community. I grew up in Haifa, and I don't remember that people had Hametz outside. Since the law was brought and the Knesset voted, that affect badly upon how Jews observe Passover. And this is what will happen.
A negative effect?
Of course. Go to the press later, after that decision that was made by the Knesset, and see the results, what happened in Chok HaChametz. The same thing will happen here. And we see that during the last 3 weeks, since that stupid law was brought to the Israeli community, how many cities approved laws that open publicly now the markets during Shabbat,
Givatayim,
Ramat Gan, and take, you know.
So aside from that, I mean, with that in mind, again, if we take this and go down a slippery slope fallacy argument, you know, why not force even more conversion or more observation, more religious observance? Why stop with Shabbat?
Because it's not possible. The only the only way to force something is by understanding that you have some reality. And I'm not agreeing with the rabbi here. I think the state of Israel has to have identity publicly, declared very clearly, and it helps. It's not that there is marriage laws. There are marriage laws here. Without them, nobody would have married in the Rabbanut, or most. But
on that same vein, I think that there's a very large push among young people to avoid the Rabbanut.
That's right. That's right. We are coming more and more liberal. If we, I mean the religious sect here in Israel, if we'll not, it's not forced to keep the Shabbat. That's not right. It's a question. It's a debate on the Jewish identity of the state. It's a debate, and we think that bringing such an identity to this state, it's not forcing something. We are Jewish. We couldn't have forced, let's say, somebody not to watch the television in Shabbat. We couldn't have do it. Nobody, but everybody here understands. Here, inherently and inside, they understand that keeping the Shabbat the way the Jewish tradition, long in generations, kept, they felt that there is something in it.
Rabbi Zari?
I can understand Rabbi Dov and his desire to have full Shabbat. Okay. But in the 21st century, you can get Shabbat by love and by understanding, not by decision of a coalition who is right now running to the men's room or to women's room.
So
this is not the spirit of Shabbat.
So how would you push?
I know, Aaron,
Shabbat.
And probably your viewers visit Tel Aviv during Shabbat, and they feel that Shabbat in Tel Aviv is not a regular day. We have to come to understand that people needs different type of Shabbat. People want to celebrate Shabbat in a different way. And I think that Shabbat came to some kind of really a status quo. Sure. Why to touch it? Why to change it? Why to force people to do something? What next? What will be next? Close the internet on Shabbat?
Sure.
To force women to wear a certain type of clothes?
Well, that's kind of where I was going earlier with my slippery slope argument, which I would love to dive into further. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. Rabbi Halbertal, Rabbi Azari, thank you both so much for coming in again.
Thank you very much.
All right, now after a long endured shortage and at the behest of the Palestinian Authority, Israel has now agreed to restore its full share of power to the Gaza Strip today. Israel first turned off its 40% of the power grid over half a year ago in response to intentional withholdings of payments to Israel from the PA. Well, now that Hamas has come to the Palestinian Unity negotiating table, the PA is paying the bill, and all the power lines into the Strip will be fully operational by nightfall. More importantly, the additional access to power from the current 2 to 4 hours a day to nearly 8 hours per day means that humanitarian services in dire need will also be finally supplemented. Services like healthcare or even water treatment were severely limited since the grid was powered down last June. With all lines into Gaza from Israel providing their share, the coastal enclave will now be back up to its 120 megawatt supply. All that remains in the path to unity now, from Hamas's perspective, is the lifting of all other remaining PA-generated sanctions. Well, it may seem like the stuff of science fiction, but artificial islands are quickly becoming a very concrete reality. Israel has considered its own man-made islands for a variety of reasons in the past, but now Netanyahu has just summoned a new committee to reopen the idea once and for all. ILTV's Brett Allen Smith is here with the details. So, Brett, welcome back to the show.
Thanks.
All right, so why exactly are they looking into this now?
Well, the Knesset's always got their eyes on the future, not just in terms of technology and innovation, but also when it comes to future problem solving. Now, according to Netanyahu, he sees overpopulation as a very foreseeable concern in the coming decades, which is why he thinks it's time to reopen this idea, reevaluate where the technology is, and maybe even set up these islands as future housing colonies for Israelis to live offshore.
All right, now it's ironic that you've actually said that this is our version of Netanyahu's version of problem solving, rather, because this, of course, isn't the first time that we've seen Israeli leaders pitch artificial islands as a solution for uniquely Israeli issues.
No, it's not even the first committee assigned to look into the issue at all. In fact, the Transportation Ministry, led by Minister Israel Katz, has been fighting for years to set up that man-made island off the coast of Gaza. That idea was presented as a solution to the crippling humanitarian condition inside the Strip, which, of course, Israel maintains a very strict blockade around for security reasons. Now, that idea for an island had a port, a cargo terminal, and an airport to give Palestinians total access to the outside world without threatening Israeli security. Now, that idea is still kind of an uphill battle, and I don't think it's going to be on the table now under this new committee. That's still to see, but I'll get onto that now in my report.
All right.
Israel has been toying with the idea of artificial islands for nearly 2 decades now, plans that have been consistently derailed because of both environmental concerns and financial ones. But Prime Minister Netanyahu believes technology has finally caught up with ambition, and that man-made islands may be the key to Israel's future. The government has just established a new committee to investigate the idea. After a survey, they will suggest how possible it might be to move existing Israeli infrastructure offshore, or even construct new Israeli homes and facilities on future island projects. The dream of artificial islands became a shocking reality back in 2011 when the United Arab Emirates finished the first palm island off the coast of Dubai, formed in the shape of a palm tree. Israeli Transportation Minister Israel Katz has actually been pushing his own island idea for years now, suggesting an artificial island off the coast of Gaza, complete with a port, airport, and cargo terminal, all designed to help ease conditions in the Gaza Strip. For now, that idea remains on the shelf. Netanyahu's new committee is tasked with investigating how it will help Israeli populations in the near future.
Now, though Israel is enjoying a relative calm from violence right now, the Israeli Security Cabinet has been regularly meeting recently to discuss the mounting threat in the north, a discussion described Sunday as, quote, extremely significant. According to the limited reports allowed past the military censor, the primary concerns illustrated in these meetings are about Iranian-backed forces in Syria and Lebanon joining forces and posing an existential threat to Israel. According to IDF Chief of Staff Gadi Eisenkot, Iran is a, quote, multi-dimensional threat that's been spreading its roots deep into the region for a long time now. Aside from the fact that Iran is building military installations in southern Syria, and that Syrian government forces are already publicly working together in the Golan with Iranian-supported soldiers and Hezbollah, Eisenkot claims that the Islamic regime is also spending billions of dollars annually on funding terror by proxy. He said Iran spends between $700 million and $1 billion per year on Hezbollah alone, with another $100 million each to groups like Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and militias in Syria, Iraq, Yemen, and Lebanon. Israel's response to these threats remains to be released, but judging from rhetoric used in the past and meetings between Israeli officials and regional players, you can be sure it will be fierce. A call from the taxman is almost never a good thing, but a new case in the Netherlands has taken things to a disturbing new low. An elderly Holocaust survivor collects a small monthly stipend from Germany as reparations for forced child labor that she endured during Nazi rule. But now the Dutch tax authority is coming after her, demanding she pay taxes on that money. This is an explosively controversial case for the Dutch government to make, especially considering Germany exempts recipients of such payments from paying taxes on them. Each payment amounts to a mere $156 a month. Inge Prenzlau was forced to start working at her father's factory without pay at age 11 in order to prevent Nazi occupation forces from taking it over. That's why Germany now gives Prenzlau, currently aged 86, a small stipend for the forced child labor, which most people equate with, quote, ghetto commendation. Prenzlau herself is outraged and appalled that the Dutch government would come after her, and many have pointed out that the king himself receives a royal, quote, tax-free salary, yet an 86-year-old Holocaust survivor isn't exempt from a thing. Well, Prenzlau has now sued the tax authority to halt the collection, but the Dutch State Secretary for Finance has only doubled down on making an example out of this elderly Holocaust survivor, arguing that making a concession now would make a precedent for, quote, many other stipends rooted in such things as war, for example, disaster, terrorism, hijacking, and abuse, end quote. A troubling statement in an already troubling case. As we begin the first quarter of 2018, business-minded people are already looking for the next big Israeli exit. And thanks in large part to 2 exceptional deals made last year, exits in Israel's high-tech market alone hit over $23 billion in 2017. Well, here with me now in the studio with more on 2017's successes and 2018's potential is attorney Dan Shamgar, a partner with Meitar Likornik Geva Leshem Tal. Thank you very much for coming in.
Pleasure being here.
All right, so my first question is, what were these first two big exits from 2017, and what does Meitar have to do with it?
2017 had two very exceptional transactions. The first one was the acquisition of Mobileye by Intel at a value of approximately $15 billion, which is exceptional by all means. And then the second one was an acquisition of Neuroderm, a medical device company, by a Japanese buyer for slightly over $1 billion. We were involved significantly in both transactions as the attorneys putting the transaction together.
And so are customers or people who are looking to pick up or buy an Israeli company, a high-tech startup, where are these customers coming from? Are they all over the world? Is everybody looking at Israel? Well, you just named Intel and a Japanese company.
Well, the interest today in the Israeli high-tech industry comes from all over the world. Obviously, the big American companies have always been kind of traditionally interested in looking into Israeli technologies, but over the years, both European companies and Chinese companies and other Asian players have become very interested in identifying unique, innovative technologies that can make a difference for these big companies, because for them, innovation today is the name of the game. So if they can identify a technology that for them can increase sales, then they would be willing to pay. They would be willing to pay significant sums of money for these technologies.
So, what kind of trends did you see in 2017 that you think might continue into 2018?
Well, I would say that statistically, the interesting development is the fact that the average price per transaction has grown significantly higher, which means that Israeli companies are looking for bigger transactions, and that reflects the fact that today Israeli entrepreneurs are willing to build big companies with long-term plans and willingness to expand over time, because they are looking to become large players, and that is different in the past. In the past, they used to look for a quick exit. People were looking for a sale as quick as they could. Today, they have long-term vision of the growth of the company.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have. Dan Shamgar, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
All right, now sometimes the biggest gifts come in small packages, and nowhere is that more true than with delicious and nutritious cherry tomatoes. One Israeli company might have just redefined the modern salad as we know it by inventing what is perhaps the world's smallest cherry tomato of all time. Check this out. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce the Drop Tomato. He may be small, but he's got a big flavor. Weighing in at just a few grams and about the size of a blueberry, this creation packs the explosive flavor of a regular cherry tomato at what could be a record-breaking size. Though the seeds were originally cultivated in Holland, Israel's Kedma company modified the formula to grow them right here in the Arava Desert. The Arava is home to tons of innovative agricultural projects and greenhouses, but the Drop Tomato might just be the cherry on top of them all. Their incredible size opens up tons of cooking possibilities, and word is the flavor is out of this world. A top Israeli chef got his hands on early samples and says, quote, "It's very simple, it's clear, it's nice, it's sexy," end quote. Coming in both the red and yellow varieties, Israelis will get the full taste test themselves pretty soon. The Drop Tomato makes its debut publicly at Israel's International Agriculture Fair later this month, and you can bet that we'll be first in line. Israel's ZAKA organization lends helping hands to disaster relief efforts all over the world. And lately, their volunteers have been working around the clock helping to clean up following deadly storms in South Africa, which left at least 2 dead and 50 others injured. 40 ZAKA volunteers were dispatched to Johannesburg in the wake of horrific storms that ravaged the city for days. The rescue and recovery teams were on the ground helping build structures for the homeless, searching for survivors, and assisting in the cleanup. But the work hasn't stopped there. On the heels of the Johannesburg crisis, ZAKA received calls from France, Costa Rica, Ukraine, and Russia, and immediately dispatched volunteers to help them problem solve as well. In France, for example, an Israeli man was seeking emergency passports for his young children because he needed to travel to Israel for cancer treatment. ZAKA was able to use its connections and secure a one-time entry permit for all the kids. Then, when a plane recently crashed in Costa Rica, leaving 2 Jewish families dead, ZAKA was on the scene to help collect their remains. And ZAKA has just helped Jews traveling abroad in Russia and Ukraine to avoid disfiguring autopsies as well over the deaths of a 2-month-old baby and a young yeshiva student. Unfortunately, ZAKA's work is never done, but luckily the group is working around the clock to help in times of crisis all over the world. Now, Israeli superstar Gal Gadot has just made an amazing splash at the Golden Globe Awards, not just because she presented the award for Best Lead Actress in a musical or comedy TV series along with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, but because she was on the red carpet with a message, dressing in all black to symbolize Hollywood women's stand against sexual harassment. Gadot's stunning dress was definitely a highlight for fashion spectators on the red carpet for the annual Golden Globes, and it's not easy to distinguish yourself when nearly everyone else is wearing the same color. Dozens of top Hollywood women, including Michelle Williams, Meryl Streep, Emma Watson, and Amy Poehler, all wore black in solidarity with victims of sexual misconduct all over the world, and to say, time's up on sexual harassment. But it wasn't just Gadot in black dresses making waves. Several other top Jewish stars took a stand that night as well. Israeli-born Oscar winner Natalie Portman made an incredible statement when she went on stage to present the Golden Globe for Best Director. Reportedly going off-book, Portman pointed out the lack of female representation by saying, quote, "And here are the all-male nominees," end quote, before listing the names. Just like the two real-life Wonder Women that they are, hopefully Gadot and Portman can help bring about change for women all over the world. All right, tons of international celebrities travel to Israel for vacation, and while the plan is usually to get some rest and relaxation, one Dutch actress got just the opposite after she posted pictures of her visit to the Holy Land on social media. She received some major backlash, and now ILTV's Emmanuel Kadosh is here with more details. Emmanuel?
Thanks, Aaron. Yes, well, one of Netherlands' best-known actresses, Victoria Koblenko, says hundreds of people unfollowed her on social media for posting pictures from her casual vacation in the Holy Land, but she was not having the hate and backlash and took things into her own hands by encouraging people to unfollow her if they wanted to. But I do have more details in my report. The award-winning movie, TV, and theater actress and journalist Victoria Koblenko visited Israel just last week, posting photo after photo of the trip. When hundreds of people started to unfollow her on Facebook, the 37-year-old decided to post a photo from Israel again, this time from the old city of Jerusalem on January 3rd, saying she has no time for people who, quote, assume something about my political inclination based on my holiday destination. She also decided to mention in the same post that the Middle East is her favorite vacation destination and that her followers are free to, quote, unfollow me if you disagree. Looks like she won't be bullied. Koblenko stands out because recently the young singer Lorde canceled her upcoming Tel Aviv gig after pressure from fans against the performance. Since then, over 100 different artists have signed a letter in support of the New Zealand pop singer's decision to cancel.
Jerusalem is a city of holy faith and sacred traditions. All right, you got me. Maybe not every tradition is exactly sacred. You know, dozens of Jerusalem citizens have just participated in International No Pants Day, which, you guessed it, is the day when people all over the world say so long to their pants. The so-called holiday of No Pants Day originally started off in 2002 when a New York City comedy troupe decided to ride the subway sans trousers. The idea immediately went viral, though, and now, once a year, cities all over the world celebrate No Pants Day together by riding their respective subways and trains completely and utterly pantsless. Keep in mind, though, that Jerusalem's light rail is an outdoor train, and for anyone who's ever been to Jerusalem in January, trust me, the winds are frigid. But neither rain nor cold has put any damper on Israelis' celebrations of No Pants Day. In fact, throughout the day and well into the night, passengers rode the city's light rail, bearing it all. Or, more thankfully, bearing nearly all. And now for our Hebrew word of the day. Except for on very special occasions like yesterday in Jerusalem's rail lines, typically we're supposed to wear pants when we leave the house. Well, so in honor of yesterday's annual No Pants Day, our word is michnasaim, meaning pants. Just as in English, michnasaim is a plural word for one item of clothing, but in modern Hebrew, you can also just shorten it to michnas and it means the same thing. Now, with all the amazing fashion designers that Israel has to offer, you can bet that we have a lot of choices in michnasaim. We've got short ones, regular ones, something in between, and probably other types of pants too. So if you like michnasaim, head on over to Israel. And you know, if you don't, then you can go to Jerusalem, ride the train, and take them off. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight and tomorrow are both supposed to have clear skies and a rise in temperatures. The low tonight will be about 50 or 10 degrees Celsius. Tomorrow's high is expected to be about 67 or 19 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.44 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook at Israel English News and on Twitter at ILTV News. I'm Aaron Porras, and thank you for watching.